Mitt Romney has announced his new energy plan, and it is, of course, gigantically in favor of the oil companies. In fact, 2 days before he announced it, he met with the head of the oil companies, including the CEO of ExxonMobil, and said basically, what would you like me to do? And they're like, okay, here's the most pro-oil and coal plan you could possibly come up with, hand it in. And he did. He announced it today, and here's what his plan does. It opens sites for offshore drilling, including in some national parks. It also gives states rights to onshore development. Now, why is that so important? Because the federal government is a little bit more careful, believe it or not, in doing this. But a lot of the red states will be like, oh, I'm getting paid by the same oil company, guys. Absolutely, open them up right away. So it leads to more drilling. Point number 3, private sector-led development on new energy technology. Private sector-led on new technology is a way of getting subsidies to oil companies to get them more money. Of course, this is a very critical one. Point 4, revisit EPA regulations and permitting. That means take away EPA regulations and let them pollute as much as they like. And then finally, of course, he's going to approve the Keystone Pipeline, which climatologists have said is game over for the climate if we actually complete it because of how bad it is for our environment to do the tar sands and how much it pollutes. So there was an analysis done by the League of Conservation Voters on Mitt Romney's plan. Number of pages, they say, 21 pages in the plan. Okay, makes sense. Number of times oil is mentioned, 154. Number of times climate change is mentioned, 0. Number of times it is mentioned that Romney's plan will continue oil subsidies, 0. Now, the reality is it doesn't just continue oil subsidies. Right now, there is $2.4 billion a year in oil subsidies for just the top 5 companies. Mitt Romney basically doubles it, says, I will give those companies that are already massively profitable. Those 5 companies are in the top 10 of most profitable companies in the world. But nonetheless, I will give those companies another $2.3 billion. I will nearly double the subsidy they get from the American taxpayer. We're not doing as well, but they're going to take money from us and give it to the oil companies, even though those guys are making tremendous profit and need no incentive for further oil exploration. You know what their incentive is? The gigantic amount of money that they're making. A subsidy is if it's, sometimes is warranted in an industry that's young and can't stand on its own feet. No one can make that argument for the oil industry. But that's not why Romney's doing it. Romney's doing it because he gets paid by those guys. One of the guys that attended the meeting and is a huge backer of him gave $1 million to his campaign. Overall, the oil and gas companies themselves gave donations of $1,753,855 to Mitt Romney. That's basically a $1.7 million bribe on top of the money he's getting from executives, etc. Now, let me give you a sense of the oil companies and how gigantic they are and how much they rob us. So this is all from just one day, and this is amazing. In one day, they make $342 million in profits. They make that day after day after day. Can you imagine? Okay, nothing wrong with that so far. You make all the profits you like, right? In one day, their salaries for their CEOs is $60,000. That's $60,000 a day. Not for all the CEOs, for each CEO. That is an unbelievable number. Now, here comes the problem. They do 1 billion pounds of carbon pollution every single day. That is such a stunning number. 1 billion pounds of pollution every day. That's why Mitt Romney wants to take away those EPA standards, because that's how they make their money, from all the pollution that they put out there that they don't pay for. They make you pay for it. Oh, you get sick, your kids get sick, that's your problem. You pay for that. I'm not going to pay for that. And the whole country, you all have to pay more for insurance to cover up for that pollution. Not their problem, because they bought Mitt Romney. They bought all the Republican senators and a lot of the Democratic senators. Okay, speaking of which, every single day they spend $167,000 lobbying Congress. Isn't that amazing? Well, it's well worth it, because every single day they get in return $6.6 million in federal tax breaks. You put in $167,000 a day, you get out $6.6 million. That is how you buy our government. In fact, get a load of this. For every dollar spent lobbying for those top 5 oil companies, they get $30 worth of tax breaks. Now, wouldn't you buy the government too? If you could spend $1 and make $30, of course you'd buy it. This is crony capitalism at its best. And who are the guys they buy first? The Republicans. And Mitch McConnell too, of course, but Mitt Romney with that $1.7 million so far. Now, it gets even starker when you look at it on an hourly basis. 1 hour, the oil companies make $14.4 million in profit. That is every hour on the hour. And despite those gigantic profits, they get $270,000 in tax breaks every hour on the hour. Now, if all of that wasn't bad enough, in 1995, they screwed up and they allowed for a loophole. It allows oil companies to drill without paying royalties at some locations in the Gulf of Mexico. It applies to about 24 different oil companies. So now that's our oil. You know how the Republicans are like, drill, baby, drill, American oil. But get a load of this. The American taxpayer in those areas gets nothing for that oil. So, for example, BP, a foreign company, can drill there, take our oil, pay nothing for it, and then go sell it wherever they like. They can go sell it to China. They can sell it anywhere. We don't get to keep it here. The drilling here doesn't help us. It helps the companies. Now, how much did that cost us? In 2011, that one loophole cost us $1.5 billion. That's straight out of our pockets and into the oil companies' pockets. Over the next 25 years, that single loophole is going to cost us $53 billion in royalties for our oil, our resources. Now, this is the easiest thing in the world to fix. They could just fix it like that. They just take away the loophole. There's no law stopping them. But they don't want to take away the loophole. Every time you propose legislation, and they have, the Republicans en masse, every one of them says, oh, hell no. Hell no, 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 no. They're going to pay nothing for American oil. Who do they work for? They don't work for you. They don't work for the American taxpayer. They work against you. They work for these multinational corporations that have purchased these sellout senators and congressmen and oftentimes presidents. Now, when you look at how much we get in royalties for our oil, it's sad compared to other countries. The U.S. federal government take from the Gulf of Mexico, deep water, was lower than 29 of the 31 fiscal systems analyzed, according to the International Oil Royalties Comparison. You know what? I'm going to give you a better sense of scale here. When you take oil out of Iraq, you know how much the Iraqi taxpayers keep of that oil? 90% of the money. In Saudi Arabia, they keep 85% of the money. Here in the U.S., if we are doing offshore, we keep a stunning 18.75. And if we're doing onshore drilling, it's only 12.5%. It is pathetic. You see, in other countries, if you take their oil, they go, okay, great, you want to profit off our oil? That makes sense. We'll sell it to you, but we get to keep 85% or we get to keep 90%, right? In our country, because our politicians are so corrupt, we say, oh, no, no, you keep most of it, don't worry. Now, would they still drill for oil in the U.S. if the American taxpayer kept more of the money for our resources? Well, obviously the oil companies would do it because they do it in Iraq. They do it in Saudi Arabia. Even if you take 90% of the royalties, they still do it. Why? Because they're going to make a profit either way. That giant amount of difference in between is the bonus they get for crony capitalism because they have bought our government. Every single day they are robbing the American taxpayer blind, and the Republicans and a lot of the Democrats love it. They love it. They bathe in that oil. And today Mitt Romney proposes an energy plan that says he's going to double down on that robbery. that he's going to make it easier to drill everywhere and pay us even less and give those same oil companies even more tax subsidies out of our pockets. This is how we lost our democracy. So many people have no idea how badly these multinational corporations are robbing us on a daily basis. Oil is just one of the examples.